Loyalty isn't just about getting people to spend more. It's about getting people to behave in positive ways that you want them to and rewarding them for that behavior. And that can be a myriad of things depending on what your brand proposition is. So you have sustainable-led brands who want people to buy into their sustainability ethic, and they want then to understand that rewards aren't just get £10 off. It can be we're planting an extra tree for you, or we're donating to this charity for you. And there's a benefit to you shopping with us because we're helping you to do something positive whilst you're shopping.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Gedd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy of leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX.
This episode is sponsored by Shopify. We are drilling into loyalty in e-commerce, but not from a very high level about why loyalty is good and what good examples are. We want to come at it from a strategic lens of how you build out a loyalty proposition and what loyalty actually means. To get into a bit more granular detail for those people who are either have a loyalty program but want to improve it, or are in the journey of building out a loyalty strategy. So getting the context for this, we're going to do a little bit of a talking heads today, myself and Paul. The context of this is that basically loyalty strategy is more than a program. A loyalty strategy is a focus on overall customer engagement, customer experience, because loyalty is earned through great and consistently great customer experience. So actually, loyalty isn't just about let's launch a program and reward people with points, prizes, perks, whatever it is. It's about understanding the fundamental mechanics of customer engagement, what levers encourage customers to feel more positive about your business and therefore more likely to be loyal shoppers and come back to you. And it starts when people first visit and come get used to your brand, not just when they're buying and in a repeat purchase cycle. So that's my ramble, Paul. Let's talk about how businesses generally approach loyalty. Because we've seen, there's a shift for people seeing loyalty as a more strategic offering rather than just let's give some discounts. Let's start with that. What is loyalty and how should it be viewed?
Yeah, so I think this is the interesting point, because I think historically, up until 2 or 3 years ago, maybe, if you said the word loyalty, everyone would have immediately looked at more traditional programs that are like points and tier and discount led, and that's still definitely the case for the majority of programs. But I do think that now, when particularly kind of people that are like consultants in new industry are talking about loyalty, they're talking about like much broader things. So a lot of people would put clienteling under loyalty, or kind of like house it within the same discussion or business case. They would also, and I think the goals differ massively as well. So historically, I think the programs were like based on models that were just specifically designed to increase customer lifetime value and purchase frequency. Whereas now, actually, like a lot of the discussions we've had recently have been more designed to get online customers into store, or like collect more data early on from a customer, or like increase frequency of engagement with an app, or like, and I'm not saying that the primary goals are still pretty revenue and like trade led, but I would say that loyalty to me now, I mean, and I said to you just before this, and I said it in my opening post talk as well, this is like the first area I've ever seen that like needs a buzzword, because it just feels like it's so much broader than like increasing customer loyalty. It's more just like, yeah, it's kind of customer strategy, isn't it? And if you've got a loyalty program nowadays, it's usually like the heart of your kind of customer strategy. And, you know, it kind of crosses over with lots of just different departments beyond like CRM and ecom. So yeah, I think I think overall loyalty is just a lot broader than it used to be. And I think, the touch points are broader as well.
Yeah, 100%. And also the bits where I think people sometimes don't focus enough is that loyalty isn't just about getting people to spend more. It's about getting people to behave in the positive ways that you want them to and rewarding them for that behavior. And that could be a myriad of things depending on what your brand proposition is. So you have brands that like real sustainable led brands who want to get people to buy into their sustainability ethic, and they want then to understand that rewards aren't just get £10 off. It can be we're planting an extra tree for you, or we're donating to this charity for you. And there's a benefit to you shopping with us because, we're helping you to do something positive whilst you're shopping. Which always sounds a little bit contrite when you're fundamentally telling people to buy and consume. But actually that's important to some people. I know I support some brands because of the grassroots organizations they invest in. And that's one of the reasons I like them, not just because I might get a discount sometime. And then the other part is for D2C e-commerce, where you own your own channel, but you're selling through retail and you can't control what the retailer's doing with their pricing strategy, discount, promotions, etc. You can't directly control it. You can influence it. But what's the differentiation point? And strategically, how can we differentiate D2C and give value to customers in this channel that gives them a greater reason to shop with us and trust with us, rather than us having to compete on price and continuously just give them reductions?
Yeah, I think the other thing that I think is hard in this area now, because some of the programs that I think I would assume perform best amongst our clients, one, aren't really measured. So they're more like closed groups, and you've kind of got a small group of people that are maybe it's almost like an ambassadors program. And then it's kind of people that have been influential around brands. There's one brand that we work with in particular that have got maybe like 100 customers in a WhatsApp group, some of which are influencers, some of which are admins to their Facebook group where they've got 20,000 customers talking about their product, and then some of which are just like VIP customers. And there's not really any tangible benefits beyond like input into new product, early access to new products, like early access to like their kind of like equivalent of outlets. And it's just, I just think now it's so much broader than just kind of traditional program, but I think we'll probably come on to
that. Yeah, exactly. And this is about thinking about what customers value, isn't it? I think this is the key theme in today's episode is you've got to really take the time to look at the data, speak to customers and understand what they value in order to be able to turn this into something coherent that's going to land, rather than just saying, well, do you know what, we're going to launch with some discount. And that's fine. I'm not denigrating that. If you want to launch with just price and value, that's fine. But it's even things, for example, a good example would be a brand, I think, like Green People, who do video customer testimonials with existing customers where they get them to record videos of talking about whether they like the product. They get showcased on the homepage. Now that is a loyalty mechanism, because you're engendering greater trust between you and the customer. You're giving them an opportunity to showcase themselves. Who not everyone loves it, but some people love to be seen and for what they're talking about to be taken seriously by other people, to influence other customers. So there are all these techniques where you can, without being promotion led, do things that will build a kind of like a greater loyalty mechanism with your customers.
What do Mattel, Victoria Beckham, Sennheiser, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet. It also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify, powering the future of enterprise commerce. Find out more at shopify.com/enterprise.
So let's start. So I use the word framework, but it's pretty loose, to be honest. An important structure way of thinking about this, and it's about starting with goals and going to analysis, then doing your planning, and then delivery. And I think often people come to loyalty from what loyalty tools are out there, and there are lots. Pick your loyalty platform, and there are lots of different tech out there that can help you. But I don't think that's right. You've got to start your strategy early and then come to the tech once you've got a clearer vision. But let's do the goal mapping, and let's start with you. And what are the primary goals that you're seeing customers putting down as like the key drivers for doing something in the loyalty space?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question. So I was just making some notes then, actually. what I think. In fact, we're going to come on to metrics, aren't we? So when you talk about goals, it's not really.
Well, they're linked, aren't we? So we probably should just do them together.
So I think overall, I think from a goals perspective, I think I touched on quite a lot of them. Like it'll either be like engagement frequency, like types of interaction. So again, a lot of our clients believe that the value of getting someone in store is high. So they provide incentives designed to get people in store, like ambassador level benefits. But I think the primary one would be revenue based. And then I just made some notes over here of some metrics that one of our clients has been using. So I think the main goal of this program was to get essentially they split customers based on number of purchases, and then within the first bracket, which would be a single time purchase, so they have sale and full price. But basically they were measuring time to move across brackets and percentage of customers that move between the brackets. So one of the goals was 1 to 2, another goal was like 5, 7, etc. You've then got movement between tiers. So if you've got a tier-based program, I think that's a good metric to look at. And then also the speed. And we've had a client like re-architect their program recently, and that was the main goal. So they've essentially adapted the incentives based on how to get these to move up tiers faster. Usage of incentives is a good one from a brand perspective. And again, I think that's probably more designed to provide, like you say, the experience than a revenue-based one. Overall total spend by segment is a good one, and with like maybe some parameters that take out certain customers. Full price adoption, key purchase rate, lifetime value by segment, and then revenue per customer by segment are the ones that I've just put in. But I think, yeah, you probably wouldn't have that many overall. I think it's basically revenue uplift based on how you're structuring the program.
Yeah, I think so. The ones that I like to focus on, number one, there has to be a customer experience based goal and success measure in there. NPS is one example. It doesn't have to be, but I find that quite a nice one, because actually if you understand your customer, you know what makes them happy, and you're giving them perks that align with that, you would expect their satisfaction with you to either stay high or increase over time. So having an NPS measure post purchase, but having it regularly, checking up on your existing customer database when you survey them and contact them, and tracking those and monitoring when you got falls and increases. I think that's quite useful. There are some companies that do that really well. Then it's the margin one is really important, because you could have a particular segment of customers who only ever buy at discount. They only ever buy when something's on sale or it's peak campaigns, and wanting to try and encourage them to shop at higher margin items and more full price. And I've actually seen people in peak trading target these audiences specifically who are discount only shoppers with discounts on higher price point items to get them into buying higher price points, so that when they come out of the peak sales, they are buying like products in ranges or brands at a better price point. So I think there's lots of different goals you can go, but experience-based, customer experience-based plus a revenue-based one for me, having a mix of the two.
Yeah, and I'll come back to NPS one, but one we don't really talk about vendors that much, but one thing that I really like, plus a couple of vendors, and one thing that one of our clients has moved from one to another, because it allows you, one, it's got much better reporting around that kind of discount or like sale customer, full price customer, and then two, it gives you a lot more granularity around the promotions. And they also do things like you can do like specific campaigns where you get triple points on a specific product category, and you can like refine that down to a group of customers. And obviously that's not something you might want for day one in a loyalty program, but obviously like a lot of the like department stores have done that in the past. And I think that I've not done it with a client before, but I'm expecting that to be cool for them.
Yeah, that's a really important one actually, because if you're a multi-category retailer, you might find that a lot of the customers only buy from certain categories from you. They're shopping elsewhere at the moment for, maybe they don't buy homewares from you. They only buy sports and leisure, whatever it might be. And actually the incentive for you to get them shopping cross-category to then put more of their wallet into your store on than someone else, and having mechanisms to do that is really important, which comes back to the goal. I mean, this is why we say don't look at tech until you've gone through this process, because if you don't have these conversations, you don't have these discussions, and you tease out what's important, and therefore what's important in day one versus what you can add later, you might end up making a wrong decision on the platform and be stuck in with something that doesn't work. Good example I had recently when someone was asking me on LinkedIn about multi-currency loyalty programs is that not all platforms, in fact, very few did up until recently, allowed you in a multi-currency environment to have fixed levels in store. So like if £1 was 1 point, then €1 was 1 point, $1 was 1 point, rather than using currency conversion off of your base currency. So you get all these nuances that if you don't tease out and define your goals and how you want it to work properly, you end up being compromised at the implementation time.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're absolutely right. You want to design the program first. But I do think sometimes you can get really good inspiration from the vendors. So like there's a feature that one of our clients is doing where they've got quite a few retail stores, and essentially they've got like local communities. So it's in the kind of sports world. And during the kind of pitch process, I think it was on Tavo. They basically got, I think it's called chapters. There's a feature called chapters that is basically just location based, and then you can adapt different elements and do like promotions by like geographic areas, which was quite cool. And that up driving some really good ideas of
yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not saying don't talk to vendors. My point of view is you've got to know, you've got to have a baseline of what you want to achieve before you look at it. Otherwise it becomes really disorientating, because you'll get distracted with that looks good, and you'll miss out on what are the core critical deliverables that you need. I think those conversations are brilliant with vendors. Instead of just being respond to this RFP, it is, this is what we need and these are our goals. How would your platform enable this? Do you have any advice? What are we missing? What are things that in your platform that be relevant that we don't even know about? That fundamentally should always be a conversation.
Yeah, I completely agree with your point on basically that way of approaching it. Is I'm sure we could do like a whole episode on how to approach vendor selection. So
and also there's no 100% right approach. It's just we've all been in for it plenty of times. You don't want a beauty parade where you're just you don't have any objective way of comparing things because you don't have any criteria. I've got OCD. It's one of my great, but it's a strength and a weakness in equal measure.
Yeah.
So let's come to the customer insight bit, because this is a fundamental pillar of any loyalty strategy, is understanding what customers value. And I know that you've done quite a lot of work with your clients as well about, and they talk to customers. So do you want to talk through, like, how do people build up a picture, and what are some of the things you've seen that are quite interesting coming out of the customer analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is quite timely because we've had a few clients recently. So one that's rebuilding an existing program, one that's doing a first loyalty program, and for them, like, they're quite traditional brands. It's quite a big thing, like lots of maybe older customers as well. And basically, so they both ran surveys, and basically the perks that people cared about were, and it's not particularly surprising to be perfectly honest. So early access was a big one. In fact, no, actually, discounts and exclusive products were the top two when you combined these two surveys. Then it was early access, and then it was like exclusive engagement. So things like in-store events, all of that kind of stuff, and anything else that's kind of exclusive to them. And one thing I would say is, I think the brands that I consider Kith to be one of the best loyalty programs. And I don't think they haven't changed it loads since it launched, but it's basically, it's all native app based, which is actually something that another one of our clients is doing, just so that they essentially get as many existing customers onto an app as possible, and then they've got the engagement benefit and the push notifications, everything else. It's all native backface, but the big thing that Kith do really well is that they have some amazing, like really cool, high profile products that people would want, and they've intentionally bought low quantities, and they intentionally only make them available to VIPs. And there are a couple of products that I really wanted, but I needed to spend like £1,000 to get them.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely too cheap to do that. But I did consider it at one point. So yeah, I think that's a really nice one. And then, yeah, the only other bits of feedback that was interesting is basically across the two brands, 80% of customers that surveyed had used a loyalty program across another similar brand, basically.
Yeah, the exclusive products that you can only have access to after a certain threshold of spend, or even when it's not even publicized and you only know about it if you are in that customer group, that really hits the premium end, doesn't it? Especially in fashion, you see, the other brands like Balenciaga have done this, where they create a load of buzz around it. It's a drop, and they create the excitement of, you could get into our top level if you spend only 20 million next year. Which I'll never be part of that walk of life. But it's interesting. Exclusivity comes up a lot actually when I not in like mass market retailers, but people in the kind of premium luxury space. I got one of I've worked with a few clients across different areas, whether it's beauty or fashion. And it's exclusivity means different things to different customer groups. It could be exclusive products. It could be events. There's all these different things that you can make available to customers. Some brands go down the route of creating customer-centric events where it's special invite only. You won't know about them unless you are part of that loyalty, but it's an extra perk on top of the other promotional elements, where you get something of value that will help you feel like you're worthy and you're loved by the brand. I also I like how brands like Opoly do it because they have tiers, and tiers is quite a standardized way of doing this to increase the rule. But you get it's not just, hey, now you get more products. They add service elements into it, and that I think is really smart. So I think in their platinum tier, they've got a VIP phone line, and that automatically sounds great. It's like, oh, excellent, I'm going to get preferential treatment and faster service.
Yeah. So what the client of ours, I won't mention them just in case, but so at the moment they've got all of that kind of stuff. So like priority customer service, like VIP in-store service, private shopping, like free drinks in store, everything else. But they're introducing some pretty cool stuff. So they're going to do receiptless returns across all channels. They're doing Uber to store in the top tier. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but there's some really cool like service-based things. And I think we're going to come on to the best programs or like some examples. But I think number one for me, and part of it's because of the type of brand they are and how big they are, but Hugo Boss is like exceptional with all this stuff. And I think the way that they've integrated it in store as well, I think is amazing. So that's my number one. And they've got loads of little service-based things around like repairs, and I think that's where we stole the receiptless return thing from. And they've got loads of others, and I think it's pretty cool to see how invested they in that program. Like they've got a whole team on it, whole things like Web3 based. Like you go in store, they've got like the Soho House style check-in, which gives you points. They've got like interactive mirrors. Like it's really cool how like all in they've gone on it.
Yeah, no, do any of your customers do like face-to-face customer interviews? I remember speaking to a few fashion brands recently where one of them does phone interviews, where they'll directly get on the phone, not just customer service team as well. It's like it's people in the e-commerce team setting up calls with customers to ask some questions and have a proper chat. Others where they've organised events, they've invited a handful of customers along, they've give them refreshments and made it a nice, relaxing, fun thing. And they just sat down and had a very open discussion in a room.
Yeah, absolutely. So loads have. And some of them haven't actually launched the program yet. Typically, like some of the larger clients. But I think one of the clients that I was talking earlier about is more of a community than a loyalty program. And I don't think they'll mind me mentioning them, but Fairfax and Favour was who I was referring to. And they're so good with like personal customer interaction. I guess they're quite lucky because of the industry they're in. There's a lot of shows, so they have like that opportunity to meet a lot of their like top customers at the shows, but they'll essentially like meet them face to face. And they do a really good job of like listening to customers, and the customer feedback is like factored into a lot of like what they do at the shows, the products, like everything else. So they're quite intentional on that side, and I think it's been really good to that.
Yeah, and I think this is where non-membership e-com can learn from membership e-com, because the membership business tends to be quite strong on this. I remember doing projects with the Wine Society, and we're trying to validate some of the strategic pillars of the improvements we're going to put forward across the site, from the e-commerce functionality through to promotion strategy, through to product, you name it. And there were all the data. We had a few things where we're not quite sure if this is the right decision, and we ran various events and panels. It was like, because it was a wine society, there was wine there. People loved to come along and get pretty nice, good wine tasting. But it was great because instantly you get this straight feedback loop of no interest in that, and you have this idea you think is really going to resonate, and you're all right. So you can't underestimate the value of doing face to face sometimes.
I think one of the things that some of our clients have been getting feedback from clients been talking about recently, because I think this for whatever reason has come up quite a lot, is the idea of your inclusion in a tier expiring and like how you feel about that. Because I think that's like obviously a really powerful mechanism where it's like, if you don't spend another X, you're going to lose all the bad bit. But obviously there's like the negative side to that as well. Like, how do you feel if you're kind of going down a tier? But I think that's like, obviously I think it's quite mixed in terms of like how our clients feel about it, but a couple are going to do that. And I often refer to like BA as, I think I just seen like 2 or 3 people just obsessed with retaining their gold status for BA. So they get like free upgrades or like discounted upgrades. And I think that's quite an interesting one that you probably need to be face to face to kind of get feedback on that a little bit as well.
But do you know what? I was going to raise a question about communication and communication strategy and loyalty, because it's one of my big bugbears, and I've seen really good programs poorly managed because saw a big one years ago with the M Brown Group and one of the brands there, where they had really good like program and perks and rewards, but it was predicated on annual spend, and if you were going to be under that spend for the next year, you would drop out of that tier. But there was no automated campaigns to alert people like 3 months before and say, hey, just to let you know, you've got all these benefits for next year, but you need to spend another £120 before the end of the year. Here's some ideas based on all this opportunity to make that really coordinated and also personalized based on the purchase history and knowledge you've got the customer. So you've got to get the comms absolutely spot on that. So I don't have a problem either, I guess, from an e-com point of view or from a customer, being a customer, that if I'm not adding the value anymore, that I won't get those perks, because you have a business to run. But you've got to give me clarity on it, and you've got to help me be proactive. Because when you're forced into something that you could have made a better decision if you had an alert, that then can take the previous loyalty, that feelings you've built up and the trust you've built up in the company, that can erode it really quickly.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually think your point at the start around comms, I've seen people build amazing loyalty programs, but the comms just haven't been strong enough, or they've invested all their time in building the program, but they've not really got the resources to like actually build all the flows properly around it. But I think that's I think that's probably the most important part of all of this, is like actually like the comms around the mechanisms. So I completely.
Yep. And especially when people have a subscription that could expire, or the benefit they previously had, and say they've got a subscription and it's a discounted one, and then it's going to go back up if they don't do X or Y. And I've had this with mobile phone providers, and I just had one recently where I've just gone absolutely mental at the company for what they did, where there was no alert to say the discounted period, you're going to be out of it next month and the cost is going up £25 a month. But hey, look, we can put you onto another package where you won't. So expecting, I know we all should be responsible, but customers forget. And it's so easy to automate alerts to tell people these things. So I would urge anyone listening, if you're serious about loyalty, think about automation and communication, not just, hey, we're announcing a great big feature to everyone as part of our brand comms, but what are those notifications, and keep on top of them and check that they're working. Because that's the other thing is, what happens if a flow is suddenly something's balked it and the flow no longer works? Check your flows are working and check the numbers going through them like regularly.
Yeah, agree.
Let's talk about competitor data in this, because you should never just borrow from a competitor. You want to do things your own way, but you can definitely be informed. The obvious one for me is always, what are they doing? What are their public facing rewards? You can't see the hidden ones unless you are a customer and you go through that proper secret shopper thing yourself. But the one that I don't think people look enough at is, if they do some mystery shopper and they get involved in the schemes, is the communication and keeping a track of those notifications, the email campaigns, how proactive, the tonality, how they engage people, and how they encourage people to come and redeem benefits that are there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard to audit, really hard to look at, because you've got to, be a pretty, you've got to spend a lot of money and engage in a program to get to the point where you can see how they're managing the highest tier. But to be honest, for a lot of our clients, the most interesting thing is how you go from 1 to 2, or sale customer for a second purchase, or even just like achieve profitability with a customer. And I actually think that's really interesting as well. But yeah, I agree. I think the only one thing I'd say is quite a lot of our clients can be quite tunnel visioned with this stuff, or like they'll essentially just look at what's going on in their industry and they'll end up with quite a flat program. Ones that I think, so like another one that Connor always talks about from our team that I really like is Paranormal, or however you pronounce it, the cycling brand. But like it's super engaging. Like the onboarding to the program is like really strong, and the data they collect is really cool. But I mean, they're not really relevant to a lot of our premium fashion clients, but like the experience, and I think some of the early comms around it is like super strong. So I think it's just making sure you're looking at best in class as well as like the ones that are relevant to you.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction actually, because you don't want to get myopic in it. And if you just look at your industry and the others aren't doing it very well, you're just repeating the sins. I think market leaders are good, but I think brands that have got a good reputation, that are currently trending, where their customer acquisition and retention, they've got a good reputation for it. And you see this in like fast growth D2C brands where they really, really hone in on the retention side as well. I think those are really interesting to watch. But I take your point about you can't easily audit all comms. You can't without doing shed loads of orders. But what you can do is see the early days of how people engage on first. You could place a few simple orders. You can check the programs and see what drives points. So there are ways you can check how well they do the basics. Because I definitely think that's a competitive advantage. If your level of communication around your rewards is really, really hot and you're proactive, and say, for example, there's a perk, I'm in segment A and I've got a perk where I get £10 shopping voucher, but it expires at the end of next month. And I had this recently with Vans where I had a voucher, I'd left it for ages because I don't buy that often, and it expired. And fair enough, because the info was on there, but I didn't get any notification telling me that this was going to expire. And I went in, got excited, I thought, I need some new trainers. Yeah. That £15 voucher doesn't work anymore. Oh, that's good. Then it just really annoyed me.
I think that's a really cool experience. Like back in the day, I used to work at Buy a Gift, the experience day company, and like they always gave people a grace period, and like they were like really proactive in like notifying people when they were kind of getting close to that date. That's a really cool experience, I think. And I would expect someone like Vans, especially if it's £15 voucher, to honour that person. I don't know how expired it was. If it's like 5 years, maybe not. But
yeah, exactly. That would be fair enough. But not mean to name and shame. Sometimes things fall between the gaps, but hence the reason for having this conversation. today about hopefully helping other people who are listening better plan for this. So in terms of competitor analysis, anything else that you've seen people do that's interesting, or is it mainly about looking wider than your close competitor set and spending time to really like see what is happening, what they're promoting and how they're promoting it?
Yeah, exactly. I think the other benefit of going broader as well is you can, or if you're not talking to a direct competitor, people are open. Though I had conversations with quite a few different brands, just like asking about like how different things have worked. Yeah, and there's another brand that I really like, and this is a topic that we could also do a whole episode on. But there's a brand called Bandit Running, based in New York, and they have a membership. So essentially, you buy into it. And you pay, I can't remember what it is, it's not much, but you then get the equivalent amount of vouchers, and then you get shed loads of partner discounts and loads of benefits within the program. And I think like that's one that quite a few of our clients have looked at, and like they kind of, again, there's been quite a lot of discussion on potentially buying it to tiers, potentially having like for one client like a separate paid for tier, etc. And I guess if you're not in their vertical, you're in a better position to like reach out to them. Yeah. So I think from my perspective, I think if someone's really close to you and you want to see the comms, I think you've got to like invest time into that really, but it is going to be hard to get the full experience. The other thing that I think a lot of brands do that we work with is have a closed tier. So essentially if you go up to like, I don't know, platinum or gold or whatever else, there's then a hidden tier, which usually is some kind of closed group. And there's a lot more interaction with senior stakeholders or founder. And there's a lot more room to like input into like strategy almost, which I've always thought was pretty cool, to be fair. And again, I think that probably works quite well. It's just how you actually manage that, because that's usually manual, how you measure it, how you... again, like whether people stay in that or get removed, etc. But yeah, I don't know what your views are on that.
Yeah, definitely. Agree with that. Next question I want to talk about, because this is the thing about loyalty, you can just sit and talk for a long time on each of these points. But role of customer data, capturing direct customer data, the importance of doing that, how you do it, and how that becomes a fundamental part of your loyalty strategy. So I know that you've done a lot of work in this, and I know a lot of your clients do. So do you want to talk through some examples of the type of customer data that you want to be doing that is useful and how it's useful?
Yeah, so I think most of our clients apply the principle of essentially incentivizing you to build an account, and as part of that build process, hand over data that is useful for them to either personalize or, improve CRM effectiveness, or generally just like give that more insight. And then probably 50% then have actual loyalty on top of that. But the type of data they're collecting varies. So I know you work with a pet food retailer. I'm sure you'll talk about that in a second, so I think that's like the perfect use case. But it's typically things like size profiling. It's things like category interest for customers that slightly broader the catalog, maybe some like geo information. And then essentially, especially size can then be used to personalize the on-site experience. And same with interest or like category preference. I always like the J. Lindbergh example where they're cross-category sports. And as part of the account field program, you get free shipping and returns. They actually don't do loyalty. And then essentially you get, they ask for details on the sport and size and everything else. And then all of my comms are then, and so in my case, I put golf and medium and things like that. And then all of the comms mill on that. I don't think they do any on-site personalization yet. So like Spoke's a really nice example of that, or Eaton's a really nice example of that. A couple of our clients are starting to do it now where they're just highlighting size. But yeah, so that's kind of, they're my examples. But again, we're quite niche in fashion. What about you? What examples do you have?
Well, the great thing is this principle can be applied to any business. It's what data points will be useful for you for your merchandising, but also will enable you to add value and help customers. So yeah, the pet one's a good example. Like Lily's Kitchen working with have pet profiles. You can add a profile for up to 5 or 6 of your pets. It catches the pet birthday, and obviously then you can come up with automated campaigns to give people special perks on the birthday of their pet, which is really, really nice. But one thing I love about that is they allow people to archive their pet profiles if a pet has passed on, and that's a really sensitive time for anyone who's got a pet. They are part of your family. So to not just like delete it, your pet's no longer there, to allow people to still have that, to still remember them, I think that's really nice as well, because that to me is about, this is what true like loyalty thinking is about what is in the best interest of our customers, what helps our customers, and what will make them feel more, more how can I speak, say happier about continuing to shop with us. Another example, I saw this is years ago, so I don't know if they still do it, but I remember when I was doing an audit for somebody else, like Net-a-Porter, Mr. Porter, and how those sites work from a like product management and merchandising point of view. What they did quite nicely post sign up was capture specific brand interest, and this is great for like multi-brand retailers. Is if you can straight away know what type of brand, because you can quickly do some analysis behind the scenes of that. Not only can you just do, okay, well, we'll only show those sort of showing those products, or we'll prioritize those products, but you could also look at the brand groupings. Is there anything you can learn from the type of brand that person is shopping with, which then have affinities with other brands, where you can then maybe add value by showcasing like, content or lookbooks or whatever that are relevant to that type of profile. So there's lots of different ways you can capture content. I think the most important bit is have a plan for it. Start simple, use the content and learn from it, rather than capturing low. Because one thing you don't want to do, and this annoys customers, you capture always loads and loads of data and you do nothing with it, because then people go, why did I give it to you? What's the value prop for the customer? Yeah, great. The last point I want to talk about, because I know that you've got a lot of insights in this, is financial modeling and the importance of this. And there are increasingly the gatekeepers for the investment and loyalty is CFO and FD, and we're in a period of trading now where it's tough. Margin pressures on, cost pressures on, acquisition costs going up a lot. So suddenly saying we're going to spend loads of money by eroding margin and giving away perks and discounts doesn't land well unless you can do financial modeling to demonstrate what the potential uplift is. What is your advice on this, and how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you've just summed it up, I think. So I think one of the drivers is often the rising customer acquisition costs, and then essentially driving increased customer lifetime values. I think you basically got to take all the incentives, work out the costs based on the existing customers who are going to receive those benefits from incentives, and then the cost for new customers, and then essentially the increased purchase frequency and like net lifetime value, and then basically model out what profit looks like. But yeah, the one thing that I think that some people sometimes overlook is the cost to those existing customers a little bit. But yeah, I think that's exactly it. And things like free shipping, free returns obviously cost a lot of money, particularly if you're offering them in a very early tier, or even to people that just build an account. So yeah, I think, whenever our clients have done it, it's been quite finance led. So essentially the econ team has designed the benefits by tier and then mapped out like spend threshold, and then the finance inputs are like, basically looking at all of the costs of the incentives versus the projected uplift. And then that's all kind of in the same, they're essentially thinking about the CAC as a starting point to essentially try and increase or reduce cost per order.
Yeah, nice. That's nice and succinct. I'm not going to add anything to that, because I've got nothing more meaningful to share on that, because it's exactly how you do it. I think the critical thing here is you've got to go through this process. You've got to engage financial stakeholders early doors, and you need to have a like business case of what the impact, and have evidence behind it. Most important thing in this process is having credible evidence, because if you put in and go, we're going to increase lifetime value by 50%, people are going to be quite cynical. So make sure that there's a realistic, make sure you've got case study evidence from somewhere else as well. And that's why sometimes when you're speaking to the technology companies, looking at the case study material they've got from other people who've done this.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the things that the vendors will put in front of you is often quite irrelevant as well. It's they're basically looking at the wrong metrics and just like global revenue and everything else.
Cool. Well, we're going to stop there. I hope you found it useful. The aim was to help people get a more structured way of approaching building out a loyalty strategy, or even extending the existing one they've got. Let us know. What did you think? Was it useful? Any questions? Anything else you would add? Any advice? We'd love to hear it. Thanks again for listening.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.